The signal in the void. The stars stretched endlessly across the black canvas of space, silent and indifferent. Commander Elias Grant leaned back in the pilot chair of the Argonaut, his ship's cockpit dim except for blinking status lights and the soft hum of the core. He had been running supply salvages along the edge of the neutral expanse for nearly a year now. Far from Earth, far from trouble. Then the alert blared. A distress beacon. Old Aurelian code. He tapped the console, brow furrowed. The translation confirmed it. Royal emergency. Vessel integrity critical. Passengers on board. Immediate assistance required. Elias stared at the readout. Aurelians weren't exactly known for asking anyone for help, least of all humans. In fact, the last human who drifted near Aurelian space vanished without so much as a diplomatic complaint. Damn it, Elias muttered, already adjusting course. Minutes later, the wreck came into view, a massive ship, ornate and golden, even as flames and pressure leaks burst from its side. The vessel spun slowly, bleeding fire and smoke, its stabilizers long dead. It looked like a royal transport, maybe ceremonial. Either way, it wasn't going to last long. Elias opened a direct channel. "This is Commander Grant of the Argonaut. Your ship's reactor is overheating. Do you have survivors?" Static. Then a faint voice garbled. "Children, trapped auxiliary deck flames." That was enough. He slipped into his armored suit, sealed the helmet, and vented airlock 1. The cold bite of space greeted him as he propelled across with a controlled burn from his suit's microthrusters. He landed on the Aurelian hull with a magnetic thud and scanned for the breach. Smoke poured from a torn section, probably the only way in. Inside, it was chaos. Fire danced along the walls. The corridors were twisted and buckling from internal stress. Elias moved fast, using his suit's thermal vision to track life signs. He spotted 5, small, clustered together on the auxiliary deck. He sprinted, avoiding collapsed beams and flickering energy arcs. As he rounded a corner, he found them. 5 small Aurelian children huddled in a stasis alcove, their violet eyes wide with fear. They recoiled at the sight of him. To them, he was probably a monster. Humans were myths, relics, or worse, boogeymen in Aurelian folklore. He lowered his weapon, disengaged his helmet, and spoke softly. "I'm here to help. I'm not going to hurt you." One child, a little girl with singed robes and gold face markings, pointed to a collapsed girder pinning a younger boy. Elias didn't hesitate. He pried the beam up with a grunt, the suit enhancing his strength just enough to slide the boy free. Warning lights flashed red inside his helmet. The ship's core was reaching meltdown. Less than 5 minutes. He activated the emergency beacon on his chest and sent the recall signal to the Argonaut. Then he grabbed 2 of the children, motioning for the others to follow. Smoke thickened, making their eyes water and their footing clumsy. One slipped. Elias turned back, scooping the boy into his arm. 2 left. He herded them toward the breach. As they neared the exit, a secondary explosion rocked the deck. Shrapnel tore through a wall and lodged into Elias's side. He grunted, but didn't stop. Blood leaked inside his suit, but he clutched the children close, shielding them with his body. They reached the hull breach. The Argonaut's drone arm extended, latching onto them one by one. Elias went last, tumbling back into his ship just as the royal vessel exploded behind him in a silent, blazing sphere. He lay on the deck, panting, suit torn and bloodied. The children stared at him, no longer afraid, just silent. One of them, the girl with the face markings, crawled over and touched his hand. "Why?" she asked softly in perfect common. Elias looked at her and smiled, pain lacing his every breath. Because no one else would. Alien eyes upon him. The children had barely settled in the medical bay when the proximity alarm sounded. Elias limped to the console, ribs protesting every step. His suit was off, chest bandaged, and blood seeping through the gauze. He tapped the display. Aurelian warship inbound. Class, Sovereign. Identification, Royal Flagship Vel'tanar. Of course, he just rescued their royalty. And now they were here to arrest him, or worse. The children stirred as the Argonaut's lights dimmed under power shift. A soft blue glow settled over the hull. Tractor lock. The Aurelian wasn't firing, but it wasn't a welcome party either. Elias opened comms. "This is Commander Grant. I have survivors aboard. 5 children. Repeat, 5 Royal Aurelian children. No hostilities from me. I suggest the same from you." A long pause. Then a woman's voice, clear, precise, and undeniably regal. "Prepare for boarding, human. Harm them, and there will be no trial." Elias rolled his eyes. "You're welcome." The docking clamps clicked into place minutes later. A column of silver-armored guards entered, their rifles humming with lethal promise. They parted as a tall figure strode in, her robes flowing like liquid gold, her crown a delicate lattice of bioluminescent crystal. Queen Caroline. She was younger than Elias expected, barely into her 3rd decade by human measure, but her presence filled the room like gravity. Her violet gaze swept the bay and settled on the children. Relief washed over her features, then a flicker of confusion as they ran past her. They clustered around Elias, hiding behind him, clinging to his sleeves. One of them, the youngest boy, grabbed his hand. Caroline blinked, clearly shaken. "Children, why do you cling to him?" The girl with the face markings stepped forward. "He saved us. He carried us through fire. He bled." Another added, "He stayed when the walls fell." When the ship screamed, the Queen's eyes lifted to Elias, narrowing. "You boarded a burning vessel for them." Elias nodded, wincing slightly. "Wasn't much of a decision. I heard the call. No one else was answering. You endangered yourself for strangers. For our young. They weren't strangers once I heard them scream." A beat of silence passed. The guards shifted uneasily. Then, Queen Caroline stepped forward, studying him with intense scrutiny, like a historian examining an ancient artifact. "Your kind was thought extinct, or exiled, and yet here you stand. Alone. Yeah, humans have a habit of not staying buried." She tilted her head. "You have no allegiance, no empire, yet you risked your life for ours. I didn't do it for politics, Your Majesty. I did it because it was right." Something in that answer seemed to strike a chord. She turned to her captain. "Stand down. Return the children to the medical vessel. Ensure they are treated." The guards hesitated, but obeyed. Caroline remained. Only Elias and the Queen stood now in the flickering silence of the medbay. The hum of the ship, the soft breathing of 5 children, and the Queen's unreadable stare filled the space. "You are not what I expected of a human," she said. Elias shrugged. "I've heard that before. I am bound by law to reward such service. Yet there is no precedent for this." She stepped closer. "But there's an ancient right, one rarely spoken of. Not a reward, an honor. A bond. Sacred. Binding." Elias raised a brow. "Bond?" She nodded. "The Vel'tanar, a soul link, is offered only once in a queen's life, to one who saves the bloodline at great cost. To bind us is to share thoughts, memory, fate." Elias blinked. "You want to link our minds? Our lives? It is not romance. It is duty, trust, a sacred tie older than our throne." He looked at her, at the children now being ushered away, at the smear of dried blood still on his chest plate. "You're offering this why?" Her eyes didn't waver. "Because no one else would. The sacred bond." Elias stood at the center of a chamber unlike any he'd seen before. The walls shimmered with living light, bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in time with a rhythm he could almost feel in his chest. It wasn't decoration, it was alive. The Hall of Origin, they called it, deep within the royal spire of Aurelia Prime. This was where destinies were rewritten. Queen Caroline entered from the far end, flanked by high-ranking officials robed in solemn shades of white and cobalt. The nobles' expressions ranged from blank to barely masked outrage. A human, scarred, solitary, unpolished, did not belong here. And yet here he stood. Caroline crossed the space with slow, deliberate steps. Her ceremonial garb was different now. No crown, no jewels, only a silver thread running across deep violet fabric. Simple, as tradition demanded. Elias had traded his bloodied armor for a dark tunic provided by the royal house. It was tailored, but felt foreign on his shoulders. You understand the weight of what's about to happen, she said quietly as she reached him. Not a question, a statement. But Elias answered anyway. I didn't come here for power or politics, but I'm not walking away from it either. Most would. I'm not most. She gave a small, almost private smile. No, you are not. An elder priest stepped forward. His voice echoed, not from volume, but from resonance. The Vel'tanar is not an oath of love, but of eternal duty. Two souls, aligned not by blood or species, but by shared sacrifice. A second voice joined, a female, ancient and brittle. From this moment, thoughts may pass in silence. Emotion may rise without voice. You will dream each other's fears. You will bleed with each other's wounds. Elias swallowed. This was real. Caroline stepped closer. Do you fear it? He met her gaze. I fear dishonoring it. She nodded once. Then you are ready. The elders extended their hands, thin threads of light stretching between them like webs spun from stars. The threads circled Elias and Caroline, forming a luminous cocoon. It pulsed once, twice, then contracted. Pain bloomed in Elias's skull. Sharp, but not unbearable. Then something more profound, the weight of memory. A child's laughter in a golden garden. A mother's funeral wrapped in silence. A moment of panic as fire consumed a royal ship. They weren't his memories. They were hers. He felt her presence settle into the quiet corners of his mind. Not intrusive, not commanding, just there. And then she gasped because she saw him too. Earth, the blackened ruins of a lost colony. The smell of cordite and smoke. The ache of holding a dying friend's hand. Loneliness, pure and raw. Elias's life laid bare before her, memory by memory. The light faded. The silence was different now, full, not empty. It was done. The hall watched them hushed. The elder priest raised a hand. So it is woven. So it shall remain. From this day, Caroline of the first light and Elias of earth are soul-bound, by right of Vel'tanar. There was no applause, only stillness. Later, in her private chambers, Caroline poured 2 glasses of fire wine. Elias stood by the window, staring out over the Aurelian capital, spires and walkways stretching like crystal veins across the planet's surface. How much of me did you see? He asked. Enough to understand why you ran from the galaxy, she said softly, and why you stopped running. He turned. This bond, will you regret it? I already do. And yet, I don't. Her lips curled slightly. Your mind is wild. Your heart, undisciplined. You act without permission or protocol. Thanks. She stepped closer. But when my children screamed, you were the only one who came. The only one who didn't hesitate. He took the glass she offered. Their fingers brushed, and an echo passed between them, like touching the surface of still water. It won't be easy, she said. I don't do easy. She lifted her glass. To the unknown. He clinked his against hers. To doing what no one else would. Starfire and legacy. 3 days had passed since the Vel'tanar, and the galaxy was already shifting. Elias stood at the edge of the Royal Strategium, a high tower encased in translucent alloy, offering a view of the stars as well as the battle maps rotating in the center of the room. He watched clusters of markers shift, fleets, relays, patrols. The Aurelian Empire was vast, but not unchallenged. Queen Caroline entered, her presence no longer ceremonial, but commanding. Since the bonding, something in her demeanor had sharpened. Or perhaps it was Elias's perception of her that had deepened. The Senate is split, she said, eyes on the map. Half call you a savior, half call you a contagion. Nice to be appreciated, Elias muttered. They fear what we might become. He turned to face her. Should they? She considered that for a long moment. Perhaps. We've lived in refinement so long. We've forgotten how to fight for something. Before Elias could reply, an aide burst in. My queen, Lord Kaeldar has declared blood right. He denounces the bond as heresy. His fleet is moving toward the inner systems. 5 sectors already under siege. Caroline's jaw clenched. So, it begins. Elias crossed the chamber to the console. We can't let him gather momentum. He's betting on hesitation. You'd lead the charge, she asked, not with doubt, but curiosity. Elias looked at the stars. You bonded with a soldier, not a diplomat. Caroline nodded once. Then do what you do best. The Argonaut, reinforced and retrofitted with Aurelian tech, now bore royal insignia on its hull, a mark of Caroline's trust and the Empire's reluctant blessing. Elias stood in the command bay, flanked by a mix of human-trained officers and elite Aurelian pilots. It was a strange crew, patched together by desperation and loyalty. We strike Vel'tanar's forward carrier first, Elias instructed. Hit hard, fast, before they expect a response. We cut off his communications, isolate the outer ring. If we break him early, the others will fall in line. And if they don't, asked the young Aurelian lieutenant. Elias allowed himself a tight smile. Then we show them what a bonded queen and her warhound can do. The battle over Thyrex's belt burned across the system like wildfire. Vel'tanar's fleet was large, but predictable. Aristocratic warfare,